Uh, I hope we're live. Anyway, hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Crafting Magic. We made it through the pilot. Yay! A show when we talk casually to people of creative persuasion and just bounce our ideas off of them and see what their response would be. My name is Sergey. I'm an environment journalist at Skyline VFX. My today's guest, coincidentally enough, is my previous one, also former employee of Blizzard Entertainment, and also a person named Dave. I think there's a pattern here. Former Warcraft 3 campaign designer, level designer for Silent Hill 5, and narrative designer for Wasteland 3, and more and more and more. He has so many titles. David Fried. David, thank you for sparing your time and joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sergio. I didn't know that Dave was a theme, but I
Yeah,
know a
yeah.
few Daves in the industry, so
If there are any other Daves looking this now, watching this now, and they're
I,
also a former employee of Blizzard, just give me a hit. We
I
can
would
figure it out.
think David Brevik would be the perfect person to have for your third episode.
I don't think. I mean, it's slightly above my pay grade probably, but we'll see how it goes. Essentially,
uh,
yeah.
you never know. Reach out.
Yeah. As I told you before we actually scheduled the thing, you didn't make it easier for me because for those of you who don't know, David has his own YouTube channel, which is actively growing. We're gonna give him a plug later on, and you can find his channel in the description if you're watching this in recording. And he's doing a lot of Ask Me Anything sessions with his viewers, and he also doing like general game design, narrative design. Well, I wouldn't say tutorial, but just advices in general, rather, right?
Yeah. Well, there are beginner guides as well. The goal is that anyone who's interested in game design can go in and start learning from the very basics, and then get that common vernacular and start to learn what a game system is and what a game mechanic is, and figure it out and sort of see if they even want to be in game design, because it's not what everyone thinks it is, generally
Well,
speaking.
because of that, essentially, I had to watch through all of that because I couldn't just, ask the same questions all the time. I have to be original,
Mm.
something like with the flavor of adventure, those people who never experienced that before. So,
Right.
even though you covered in one of your videos from, I think it was 2017, your brief career path, let's call it that way, but just for those who join you from this channel and not really aware of it, can you just briefly cover your milestones from where you started to where you are now? Briefly.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Briefest version possible. Started at Blizzard, did Blizzard for 5 years, and then basically I've been in the industry for a total of coming up on 24 years, I believe. And I worked on Oddworld Stranger's Wrath. That was the second big title that no one's played. And then did
uh,
terrible games. Da Vinci Code, for the movie release, but didn't have the likenesses of the movie stars. So that was interesting. Um, and then from there, it's just a mishmash of stuff. In 2009, I moved to China for to work at Ubisoft Shanghai, but also to escape the collapsing American economy. And
oh,
rated
you got
like
muted for a second. Sorry. I don't.
I did.
Yeah.
So in China, I got to see how Ubisoft operated and their editorial board, and I got to meet one of the worst people in the industry, Serge Hasquet, and yeah, that whole thing was a nightmare. I didn't last very long at that studio, and from there it was like Sweden, Germany, um, all over the place, and I finally ended up in Thailand and became a freelancer, and that's where I am now,
Any
freelancing.
particular reason for this variety of uh, companies you've tried to work with and the countries essentially you ended up being in?
I just
Is it
had the
just
clout.
is it
So
exploration or yeah, I'm not satisfied here,
yeah,
just might as well try this one?
it was a combination of things, but primarily it was that everything in the US was going to shit, and I'm just like, I need out. Like I had bought a condo at the height, or a townhome at the height of the housing prices, and then it collapsed
Oof.
2008, 2009. So I was just like, what the hell do I have left in the US? I may as well leave. And then I sold all my shit and I got it down to like 2 suitcases worth of stuff, moved to China, and then after that, it was like, well, I don't have to go home, so I can just go anywhere. And then I just started signing up, applying to things worldwide. I got a job in Sweden. I got a job in Germany. I went back to China. Went over back to Germany, and then I met my wife in Thailand, and that's why I basically settled down in Thailand.
Was there any difficulty with travel? I mean, for American, maybe not that much. I mean, I'm Russian, so today is a very sensitive topic. But normally, people a
Yeah.
bit uneasy, when going to not saying like one country, but multiple countries in a order. Like, yeah, well, I don't like it here. Maybe I'll just move to Germany or maybe Sweden. Why not?
It wasn't well, I mean, the main reason that I moved to China first was that I wanted to break the stereotype. Like I thought everything people had told me about China sounded like bullshit. And I went there and like the vast majority of it was bullshit. Like if you're living in Shanghai, it's a major city, you can get pizza and whatever. Like there's no, no one's mugging you on the street either. Like people are very nice. The cops there are way better than the ones in the US. Like they're just there to guide you along, not
Hmm.
to like find a way to make you pay a fee. So I honestly felt more free in China than I did in the US because I knew that there wasn't like any particular moment where a cop might decide he's having a bad day and pull a gun on me and end my life. You know what I mean?
That's a bit drastic, but I get what you're saying because my wife was living in China for a while as well, and she was very pleased with how everything is, even compared to Canada now. It's like she constantly saying to me like, "Ah, I wish we were back in China." Like, well, I mean, sorry, I mean that's a big problematic for me, but I get your point. Yeah. So after the
Yeah,
China,
yeah.
you say, okay, I'm gonna try Europe now, or was it something else behind the decision?
It was mainly just whatever job I got, I would sort of follow that. So it was like China to Sweden, back to China, then to Germany, and then Thailand. Oh wait, no, Sweden, Thailand, China, then Thailand, Germany. Anyways, it doesn't matter. The point is, I just went all over the place. And yeah, I mean, I certainly have the benefit of being an American citizen. American passport gets you in most places without having to do any sort of visas and things like that.
Hmm.
But I also am half Finnish, so I have a European passport. So it's best of both worlds, I suppose.
So in terms of the overall impressions, what do you think? The Asia is still better for you? Well, despite prior to you meeting your wife, I mean, because
Yeah,
this is
without the
a
wife,
bit
I'm not sure.
you'll be prejudiced regarding that.
I'm certainly prejudiced in that regard. I would say that Southeast Asia has the best places to be a freelancer because of the low cost of living, the high degree of freedom, and the good internet. So in Korat, where I live in Thailand, the internet here is great. I've got 1 gig up, 1 gig down, and it's better than like the internet I had in the US at any time.
Yeah,
Um,
internet is especially for me comparing that to Russia as well. I mean, I'm paying now in Canada for 1 gig like $100, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I mean, back in
Ooh,
Russia for that money, I could have all the internet
yeah,
essentially, but yeah. I
get
mean,
get your own
I
private
think
T1
yeah.
line.
I mean, for I know because a lot of Russians actually also chooses Thailand as their place of temporary residence if they do freelance or even just a quick vacation. I mean, I never been there,
Yeah.
but my wife then again was, and she was pretty happy with that as well. So I can totally relate vicariously, at least, that it's a really nice place to be. But in terms of companies, let's just, I
Mm.
mean, we'll for now omit the actual impression from the environment. Companies wise, would
Mm.
you say the Asian companies much different in terms of like the workflow overall and the feeling when you're
Oh
working
yeah.
in there?
Yeah, they're totally different. But the thing is like the ones in like Bangkok are awful. All of them are awful. All of the game development companies are just terrible, terrible places. Basically run like 90s banking kind of situation. Like it feels like an oppressive dog eat dog world kind of. It's ridiculous, honestly. And so I don't work for them and I often get like pings from recruiters. They're like, "We've got this amazing job in Bangkok, and you can be the director." And blah blah blah. I'm like, I already been there, done that. No, thank you, because it's the same two studios every time. I think they're the only ones who are allowed to operate in Bangkok. But I mean, if
Well,
I could pick up
even
and
even
move,
even even
mm,
not like talking about the actual like structure and political views of potential employers. I mean more
mm,
concerned about like if as a general artist, like not necessarily being a lead or a director. Furthermore, I
oh,
mean,
like the
just
workflow.
yeah, if a just a
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
decides like, I have an option to go to Asia to work in a gaming company, but I'm not sure whether I'll be feeling comfortable there. Maybe like language barrier or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there is a language barrier. I'd say the majority of the jobs are going to be in China, and those are going to be the ones that can pay you what you would need in terms of like a Western style salary. Um, and I would say that the work environments tend to be okay, but it's a very top-down waterfall sort of style, meaning that the boss at any time can just come in and start dictating, do this, do this, do this, and no matter how batshit insane whatever they just said was, the the team has to basically do it. And literally just last December, they moved from basically what was a 6 day every other week work week to a 5 day work week, which I thought was interesting. But apparently, they are not having enough children. So the Chinese government said,
Okay.
people are overworking.
Yeah.
Let's give
Take a
them
day
a
off
5 day
just
work
for
week.
that. Oh
Just for
wow.
that. Yeah, basically. But I thought it was pretty cool that there. I mean, it sucks that it took them this long to get a 5 day work week, but I thought it was pretty cool that the government basically said, "Now you all have a 5 day work week," and it happened.
Have you tried
Um,
Japan or Korea for that matter?
I have not tried
Or wanted
Japan
at least? I don't know.
specifically. I did want at one point before I understood what their work culture was like there. But I talked to some people who worked at Japanese studios, and if you don't speak fluent Japanese, there's no freaking point at all. So you have to be 100% fluent Japanese speaker in order to work at a Japanese studio. B, the amount of ridiculous overtime that they do, like it's off the wall. It makes America look kind of silly. And America, trust me, is like Workaholics Anonymous. Um, or they should open a chapter there
Hmm.
and it would be flooded overnight. But yeah, I would not work at a Japanese studio unless I were making the studio and could set my own rules. But that's never ever going to happen.
Yeah, it's a bit interesting to me because I was well, because I'm usually anime geek, and I was it was kind of a I wouldn't say dream, but I would be curious to try to work in Japan. And I do have a friend who's working there, but he's like physicist, and it's like totally different matter. But
Yeah,
some VFX studios, as I've been told, provide you the actual translator. I mean, if you're good enough as an artist, like if you're senior with a top-notch skills and they want you, they actually will provide a translator to you while you're working with them. I'm curious if there's
that's
any
interesting.
sort of thing in a gaming industry in there.
That must be new because I would imagine that up until now they didn't need that level of expertise, and it kind of shows in their games. Like, the games from Japan tend to look a little bit old school,
Well, I
or at
mean,
least they have in the
it's
past.
their style, so to speak, right? So it's.
Yeah,
I mean, I never. Well, we need to go over the specific titles in order to. Actually, what the hell we can do? I mean, there's no agenda to be followed on this show, so we can just discuss whatever.
sure.
So if you give me an example, I can just at least relate to
Uh, well, now I'm hard pressed to think of one, but
that.
I just
Well,
remember that whenever you're playing a Japanese game, like it stood out as like looking like a couple years older than the American counterpart games, just
well,
in
the only
general.
things
But
that came to mind is like from software games and some
mm,
JRPG games. That's the only two genres that are popping up in my head. I'm not really sure with. I'm
yeah,
not like that of a sort of widespread gamer, so that I could just taste every single cuisine of gaming studios and say like, okay, I can pinpoint what type of game it is just by looking and playing it, say to like where it originates initially. So I couldn't do
yeah.
that. So that's why it's really hard for me to come up with examples.
Well, I'd
But I
say
think
over
yeah, I
the
can understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'd say that over the past 5 years, they've definitely been stepping up their game and like hiring or outsourcing perhaps to higher end studios who can handle that sort of like more modern graphics. But it's hard to say. I'm not in that industry in Japan, so
Yeah.
it's a very different everything. Like work atmosphere, how things get done, production schedules, everything's totally different in Japan based on my conversations with a couple people who've worked there. So
Well,
I
then
don't really
coming
have
back
any
to
good
your
insight.
area of expertise, let's just call, well, mainly the
Mm.
fact that you work with so many companies in so different places. So
Yeah.
just like preliminary advice for, I don't know, not necessarily beginner game designers or narrative designer, whatnot, level designer, doesn't matter. If they curious about trying out something in terms of moving abroad or testing out different approach to making games from different countries, would you recommend any specific country or any specific studio? I'm just curious if there was any companies that blown you away by that amount that you're ready to recommend it, or is it like pretty average across
No,
the board?
they all kind of suck. I would say I would aim for a studio with a good work-life
Okay.
balance, and I would say that that tends to end up being mobile game studios, primarily like Wooga in Berlin. Yeah, like that's the only one that I can really point out where the work-life balance was really good. I've heard some Finnish studios are pretty good, but like anytime you hear triple A, that's like a warning beacon that they also probably do ridiculous amounts of crunch, like CD Project Red,
Yeah.
in the past Blizzard,
Is
I
that a reason that you
probably
switch
Remedy.
to mobile gamings eventually?
No, I switched to mobile gaming because I saw that it was becoming sort of the apex predator of making money.
Hmm.
So I knew that the job opportunities would be more abundant and more widespread. So I just wanted to pad out my expertise in that direction in case something should happen and the AAA industry collapses, which it was definitely on the verge for a while. And it's sort of there's an ebb and flow to it. Whenever the consoles get a little bit too old, that's when there's like this sort of crash of the AAA market, and like they're not looking for people, and studio there's lots of layoffs and studio shutdowns. But then when the new consoles come out, all of a sudden they're all hiring again, and it's stupid. So
Yeah. BlizzX, yeah, that's live. We're gonna take the questions a bit later, so stick around and we can ask that away at a certain point of time. So coming back to mobile games, would you say
Mhm.
there's some sort of presumption that the mobile games is like, I don't want to work on mobile games. I want to work on like big AAA titles. I want to be a guy who people like point to essentially. Well, not necessarily, but on the forums to say, hey, you design great game. But I mean, statistically, we can tell that most people play mobile games rather than AAA titles, but
Yeah.
they kind of stay behind the curtain of fame of AAA title games. So, what do you thought on that?
Mm. I mean, if you're in games to be famous, uh,
Well, I
uh,
exaggerated that point, but you know,
yeah. Well, I wouldn't basically do that because the number of people who are famous and actually deserve it, you can probably count on your fingers. In terms of mobile kind of being like looked down upon by within the industry, I guess I could see that between AAA and mobile games. I mean, like the reaction at that one BlizzCon
don't you guys
will
have
always
phones?
echo.
Mm.
Yeah, don't you guys have fun? That's the dumbest thing anyone could have ever said. But um, it's uh, I understand the mentality, and like if you're looking for a AAA game, yeah, you don't want to hear mobile at all. Um, but the truth of the matter is that mobile is rapidly moving towards being AAA itself. And with games like Genshin Impact and stuff, it's kind of becoming
Oh yeah.
obvious that not only can they do AAA, but they can make way more money than the AAA industry, and that's why you've seen in the background all the AAA PC studios sort of moving towards mobile, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a trend nowadays. Apart from other trends that we're gonna talk about like a bit later. Spoiler alert:
Hmm.
NFTs because it's a bit
Mhm.
big topic for us and it's quite controversial. I would say I'm a bit curious on your take on that, but then again, we're gonna segue towards that a bit later. But finishing
Yeah.
up with the mobile games, any particular title that you thought like, wow, that's actually very solid game design and or narrative design, like any mobile games that you
No,
played? No, still
no,
lacking on
none
that.
of them. No,
Oh.
they all suck. I mean, the truth is they
I
just
think I see a trend
why
in your responses.
why put effort into a story when really you're just trying to get money out of people? So there are
True.
some games that I've enjoyed playing, but most of them are going to be on like the Apple arcade store thing that you pay like a subscription for. Like all the Nintendo game, like the Professor Layton stuff, the Nintendo stuff, like those are pretty fun, and some of them have really good stories. There's a really good genre on mobile is adventure games and story narrative games. So those are fun things to look at. I even wrote one myself called Word Ventures, which I think they periodically pull down off the store for some reason, but you can get the APK if you search for it. Word Ventures, the Vampire Pirate, and it's a fun little game that's just a word seek, but you combine it with each thing that you find is actually something that you use in the adventure to advance the adventure, and it's pretty interesting. So there's so much potential in mobile for good storytelling. I just don't think it's been used for that because that's not where the money is. The money per per time spent on making a game. You can do way better monetarily doing hyper casual or doing what I call it's the gotcha games
Hmm.
where you get units, and like AFK Arena would be the shining star example that all of China is currently copying. I'm literally working on a clone of it myself right now, so that's painful. I'm just writing the story though. I'm not copying the game design. The game design is being copied, and I'm having to write over it, which I don't like. But what can you do?
Yeah, well, the main question would be, are you satisfied with your current activities? Because to me, that would be
Mhm.
the main goal. I mean, people probably will be split it into like one are making money and then spending the money on their leisure time, and the others,
Mm.
like myself included, I would prefer just having fun while working, even though I'm not necessarily making that huge amount of money. So, which category would you put yourself in?
I spent many years trying to find fun things to work on that I would, enjoy doing and feel good about. And ultimately, what would always happen is that someone would come and take it away from me at the last moment. Some higher up, some dickhead at the top who doesn't know what they're doing but wants all the fame and glory or whatever. And so I just became a mercenary at a certain point around 2009. I think it was after Ubisoft in particular that I basically went full mercenary, and I'm like, I'm here for the money now.
Yeah,
Whoever's paying the most, I'm going
this
for.
is the
That's also
way.
why I moved into mobile. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now it's reached a point where I'm basically offering advisory positions for these NFT companies where they're paying me like $1,000 a month just to put my name on their website and throw documents at me every once in a while that I say yay or nay on.
Interesting. That's and are you okay with this sort of, or is it like just additional income essentially, not like your primarily activity work wise?
The primary is definitely writing for the Chinese company, and the I'm doing something else that I can't talk about, but
Yeah, sure.
um the the so I have like the two normal jobby job type jobs where you sit there and do the work and stuff, and then the rest of them are like advisory positions and like giving feedback on certain things with the NFT people. The thing that's so great about that is that I'm involved with like I think I just signed another one, but like 8 or 9 of them. And so I've sort of got my finger on the pulse of what's going on with the NFT industry and how that's going, which is good to be in that position so you can, see what to avoid.
Yeah. Well, so if you say that you are like now 100% mercenary, you're not feeling that at some point you stop being that, like settle down with maybe opening up your own company or joining, I don't know, your friends if you have such that are kind of doing their startup, or not startup, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, I kind
I
of
mean
do
that.
refer into Dreamhaven and Frost Giant, but you also
Yeah, yeah.
already answered that on one of your videos. But maybe you can just elaborate that potential possibilities that if they are any.
I'm Yeah, like I'm leaving the door open for large opportunities. But it's a level design position at Frost Giant is not one of them because at this point, if I'm not going into a director position or a lead design position or a lead narrative design position, I'm basically wasting my time. Um, and so I've got my eye on a few things that would be stuff that I could go move my whole family to a nice place
Mm.
and settle down there and just do that one job, and then I would do YouTube in my off time, um, and devote more time to that. Uh, but I am looking to at some point drop all of these projects that I'm doing because it's too hectic and I'm just tired all the time and I haven't had a vacation in
Yeah,
like a
you go
year.
into bed like a ridiculous time. I mean, we
It's
have
not
like
healthy.
12 hours difference, but still, yeah, it's you should sleep well.
I
Uh,
have not slept in a bit. Yeah, it's
oh
not
my
good.
god.
I definitely don't recommend what I'm doing, but I'm trying to capitalize on both like this weird little bit of fame that I got for some reason,
Yeah, that would be
and
my
well,
follow up because your YouTube channel existed for quite a while already, right? Was it only
yeah,
recently that
years.
it start ramping up, or?
Yeah, no, it's within the last several months that it went to what is it, 7,000 now? Yeah,
Yeah,
7,500. It was
yeah.
somewhere around
Let
like a
we share
hundred
the
to a
screen
thousand
real quick.
since 2017, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna quickly share the screen so that people would see. Uh, yeah, and you've covered various topics, not necessarily. I mean, my guess would be that the Kickstarter for that was Blizzard related searches on internet. My guess. I'm not really sure, but you can just check your statistics actually. Uh, and then
Um,
your Ask Me Anything sessions mainly.
well, a
But
lot of them came in because I did the what you call it, cooperation.
well,
What's it
yep,
called? Collaboration. I did the
collaboration, sure.
collaboration with Ablehawk, and
Mm.
Ablehawk has a much bigger community of Warcraft 3 fans. So when we did, back to back videos, one leading to the other, that actually brought in a lot of people. So I have him to thank for this massive boost. But it wasn't until the fourth video, part four, where I talk about what happened with Reforged,
Oh
that
yeah.
it suddenly exploded. Like that one got
People
shared
were
around
very
Reddit, and
frustrated and wanted an answer. Like, what happened?
they
Why?
they got an answer.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so yeah, it gets passed around quite a bit. That's probably the most viewed video. I think it's around. It was over 100,000 last I checked.
Are you
So
happy with the how things going? I mean, were you? I mean, I never asked for this, or actually, like, hey, this is nice. I mean, now I can put even more content on. And,
I mean, yeah, that was kind of the goal, was to get enough people coming in that it would sort of start sustaining it and I could like hire an editor and stuff. That hasn't happened yet. Like I'm still looking for an editor, but the Discord has blown up and it's weird how good my community is. Like they are some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I love it. Um, and that was totally unexpected. But it's a lot of people who were like, "Oh, I got into game design because I played Warcraft 3," and it's like that's
yeah,
the
that
that's
that
that hits you in the feels.
yeah, that's amazing. I mean, imagine that we're in a time, living in a time that a person such as myself, who was playing Warcraft 3 games, essentially like talking to a person who's designed, who designed that particular game. And I was like, well, yeah, sure, not a big deal. I mean, back in the days, you wouldn't think about it. You just imagined godlike figures who conjured this masterpiece somewhere in a distance over the horizon. And they're like, wow, this is pretty nice. Oh no, he killed his
Yeah.
father. Oh my god. Spoiler alert, by the way. But yeah, but now we can just chat and discuss stuff. It's really
Hmm.
making me feel good. I mean, I hope our viewers vicariously through me getting the same sort of experience. Not sure if they are,
Well,
but
they can
I
just join my Discord and talk
Yeah,
to me directly
exactly, guys. I
anyways. So
mean, yeah, it's and then you have a special system to answer the questions, like fill in the Excel cells
yeah.
up to a point.
So the way I'm doing it is that I've determined that 25 questions is about the most I can handle in a session where I
Yeah.
just sit down and talk. So every time I get 25 questions in a category, I'll just do a video, and
Do you
there'll
filter
be
them
another one
somehow,
soon.
or
I have to do it by
topic
hand
wise?
right now. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I split it off into categories like games I've worked on, game development in general, the game industry, like
Yeah.
the broadest topic, and then like countries that I've lived in. So
Ah,
people
so
can ask me questions
that's
about
where you
those.
got the table that you shared with me. Oh, right. Because I thought like, wow,
Yes.
this guy is prepared. I mean, look at that. I don't even need
Yeah, I
to
made it just for
specify.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Uh. Okay. Let's just switch then slowly into the actual examples of game design, because I think
Mm,
people were also curious about the actual process of doing that. Although you covered quite an extensive questions on that matter already, but I would specify
mm,
some of them maybe, and then I address some of the questions that guys from goodgame.ru came up with. Fortunately for us, I mean, some of them are Warcraft 3 based, so I kind of
that's
decided
fine.
to leave them yeah, a bit at the end, but never mind that. So my question would be, as a probably, since I'm an environment artist, I usually when I play games, I just walk around and just look at stuff before I proceed
Hmm.
through the story, because sometimes in the games, for example, like the ones that I had like 100% achievements on Steam, like Deus Ex series and Dishonored
Mm,
series, those
mm,
level design wise, for me, those are top notch, because I can play through games several times and find out something new every time.
mm,
Keeping that in mind, when you, not necessarily it's like hypothetical, could be as well, when you designed a game, let's just say
mm,
the story is written, some parts of it, right? As you discuss in your videos. And then you have to build a level essentially, or design the chain of events that leads from one milestone to another. You did that, then the level designer or whoever actually builds the level or a campaign does that, then brings it back. You play for it and say, hey, I never imagined this thing would be that big or in this way or here or have this sort of features. It actually might be nice if we slightly change the narrative to accommodate that and make it even more interesting. So essentially, my question is whether something that was born from the story actually then changed the story on its own because it was in a certain way.
well,
I hope it wasn't too
uh,
difficult of a question.
it's interesting because the issue is that generally speaking, on the majority of games that I've worked on, when there is level design, I'm doing the level design myself.
Yeah. Well,
So like,
it's could be
uh,
happen in that regard as well. You just play something,
yeah, yeah,
and then when you play and your units, let's just make a Warcraft 3 as an example. You design a
yeah,
map,
yeah,
you play through it, and you say, "Wow, that's interesting. My units like get from here to here very fast. Maybe I just curve things, like add a village.
yeah.
Maybe this village will have a quest. Let's do that, and some sort of that."
No, all the time. I mean, that's just a natural part of the map creation process, is that you've got your 2 or 3 major locations that you know have to be there, but then there's all the stuff in between, and then it's just really as open as your imagination can be. And that's why I think my maps have most of the Easter eggs on them. Because I'd see some dead space and I'm like, I don't want to have dead space here, so I'll create a Sasquatch secret society up in Undead 2, and if you bust through this tree line, then you can find them, and like, oh, Sammy made this cool art, but there was no use for it, so I'll just put it over here and we'll call it a Pandaren relaxation area. Like, it's just it sounds random, but it really is like me looking for things that we have that I can use to fill in the sort of lore and stuff of the area. And I think that's where a lot of the most fun and creative aspects come in, because there's stuff on my maps that most people probably never even notice. Like, you can spot Tichondrius off in a corner eating souls. This is all one map, by the way. All of these are in Undead
Yeah.
too.
Do you have a video of this so that we can just put in the background while you? Is it on your channel?
I'm sure
Maybe.
we do. I don't think. Oh, in my playthrough, yeah, I think I probably did go see all these things. Um, Oh, it's so you'll never find it. My channel's a mess. I'm sorry. A playlist would probably be the best option.
Okay. Human campaign visiting. Okay, we'll leave it to our viewers to
They'll find it.
discover themselves. My follow-up would
Yeah.
be whether there are any limits to that. So you're designing, you're filling your
Mm,
empty space. You may be doing like in between quests to fill up the time or the space. Is there any limit to
yeah.
that? Is there any maybe how would you say cohesive narrative overall in between those small pieces, or they're completely isolated in their own story?
As long as it's believable that it's there, the then contextually it'll work. I don't know how believable a Pandaren relaxation area in Lordaeron is, but it exists. And I think back then it was just a much looser. We were much looser with the lore and things like that. So it didn't really cross my mind that that might be a problem. Didn't really cross anyone else's mind because they left it in. Uh, yeah, and there's even weirder things like the way to get to the secret level in Dungeons of Dalaran is to make the sheep Baramu, which is a reference to the movie Babe,
I don't think I saw
but
that one.
also a reference. Uh, you must have because it's the tower defense level. It's the only way to get access to the tower
No, I
defense
mean the
level in the
movie.
campaign. Oh, Babe, yeah, okay. But well, I mean, it was also referenced in Warcraft 2. Um, so I was referencing Warcraft 2, referencing Babe the movie to
Is it about the
be the
pig?
sequence. Yeah,
Oh, okay. So maybe I mean, it was a long time ago. I have some recollection of that, but not necessarily in great detail. But it never
I'd be
affected the,
surprised if you haven't watched it. Yeah.
but it never affected the actual. Well, I would say lore with a capital L, but I mean,
Mm.
whether it affected the story or the general story, the way that you design the level. Oh, it's like mainly, hey, let's just get from point A to point B.
Uh, no, I would never do that. I always wanted to have something. There always has to be something. Some because that's how player agency is created is like you let them decide whether to just go make a straight line or to go somewhere else and deviate and find something cool. The problem with AAA that I've seen over the last like 10 years is basically that they're so afraid of people missing content that they put indicators and map things and they basically channel you through each damn thing that they've done, and then there's no sense of discovery or fun, or some people just want to get through and beat the level. They don't want to do all these side distractions, but they're forced to because they're so afraid of you missing the content that they force your hand, and that takes away player agency. So these things that I put in back in Warcraft 3 and in Oddworld Stranger's Wrath and games like that, they're there for you to find or not find. Like
Well, yeah,
that's
that's
what
the
makes it
same thing I
fun.
mentioned. I mean, even though we kind of weirdly comparing Deus Ex in my mind with Warcraft 3, but the approach is essentially
Yeah,
the same. It's just somewhere. I mean, I'll give you an example. I'm not really sure whether you played Deus Ex Human Revolution or not.
I did.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so there was the first level is Detroit, and there are several like sub locations in there. You almost can go to any one of them, and at every point in time, because you're coming back to Detroit several times, something different happens in those locations. So where's
Mm.
the I forgot, like William Taggart, I think was the politician who's performing at some gala or whatever,
Mm.
the meeting place. I don't know how it's called. Prior to that, if you try to visit that place before that event in the campaign, it closed down partially, but there are actually some punks graffitiing the space inside. So you can actually go in there and like drop through the vent, like you usually do in most of the games. And you find that they're actually, well, there's a Praxis kid, and then you have some punks just discussing some weird stuff and just doing graffiti. So that's small detail that I never encountered in my previous playthroughs. I'm like, wow, it was there all along. I wasn't, because they didn't have
Mm.
to design that. Nobody would go there because there's nothing happening until a certain point in the story, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's
Well,
essentially the same approach like you have, right?
yeah. No, it's a good approach because I mean, especially in like DSX games, or well, not that there's so many, but the whole sort of thing is that uh there's these major events and when you come back, things have changed. So it stands to reason that every area that exists in that space for use in whatever specific event also needs to have some sort of thing going on when it's not that specific
Yeah,
event.
exactly.
And that's where all the fun comes in, because like, oh, what's happening before, in that case, what's happening before the big event where the guy comes in and gives a speech? Well, we'll have some punks in here graffitiing stuff and talking about existentialism or whatever
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was. I
yeah.
can't remember.
So I mean, I wasn't well trained to perceive game in that regard, that it's like not necessarily a corridor shooter, right? But the most
Mm,
3D, well, first person adventures are. I mean, I can maybe take an example of Bioshock 3. I mean,
hmm
it's kind of the same like Deus Ex series, but still it lacks that, because it's pretty much straightforward linear path that you just follow and that's it. Well, there is some looping happening in between, but you never actually get to explore this closed open world. Put it that way. That
Closed open
have
world, yeah.
yeah have some secrets hidden away. Not necessarily even secrets, just some weird stuff. So when I played through Deus Ex Human Revolution last time, I mean sixth playthrough, they have an option with the developers commentary. So when you pass a
hmm
certain area, there's a button pops up,
The
and you
question
can
marks.
click.
Uh,
Yeah, you can click it, and they
yeah.
just give you a recording of they actually sitting through the playthrough and commentary of this. So for example, in
Mm.
Hensha, the Shanghai in Deus Ex, there is an area with the storages, and they are closed. You can hack them. You can find the somehow. Well, actually, you cannot, but you can hack them. But when I played through them and I heard their commentary, they actually saying, "Okay, look at the door of the storage. You see all these weird graffitis, and among those graffitis, there are codes to every storage." So essentially, they put the codes of every storage as a part of the graffiti, but it's so well
Oh my
designed
god.
and blend in that you just, well, there's some sort of graffiti. I don't care about that. But you can actually just put the numbers to the lock, it actually will open it. So
Oh
those
my god.
sort of things will always be amazing to me, because, like, how even come up with this and why people don't when they play through that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the way that you come up with it is like, I've got a door, I've got a code. I got to put this code somewhere so players can find it. Otherwise, it's impossible. So I know. We'll hide it in the graffiti.
Well, it's
That's
you can
basically how
still
it went.
open it
Yeah.
if you like hack them, but that means you have to
Right.
spend the points in hacking rather than and there's
Yeah. Yeah.
no I would say big plot related loot in there. You just find some, I don't know, maybe a praxis kit or some
Mm-hmm.
grenades, and that's it. But not big of a deal. But just the way they design it, it's a bit funny to me. Any
Yeah.
particular games that you were blown away by the game design itself? I mean, as a professional, you would play it's like, hey, this is damn good narrative design, or some features of game design that you really liked in some of the games you played.
The last time I was blown away was actually Warframe.
Oh, really?
Um,
In
yeah.
what
Have you
regard?
played that?
Yeah. I started,
They
but it wasn't for me. It's like all
yeah,
those
so
Destiny
I mean
types
that's
of
the
games are a bit tricky.
right, and it feels like that. And initially I was kind of hesitant, but they've improved a lot over time. But also they have a really killer plot twist
Oh, really?
um that absolutely blew me away, and it's worth playing the game just to get to that plot twist.
Is it far in campaign? Because to me, it's
It's pretty far. It's pretty far. You
mm,
basically have to unlock almost all the planets.
oh shit.
So, but they're
Ah,
not that hard once you get into the groove, like it's not that bad. You're not going to be sitting there grinding or anything, and the campaign missions are not the difficulty is tuned very low. So generally, it's not a problem. There's a few that are kind of difficult, but I'll go with you.
so
But
were you
there's a
blown away by the fact that the twist was done good narratively speaking, or by the fact that it was present in such a game as a Warframe to begin with?
both. Like
Oh,
it was a really good story and plot twist that made sense of a bunch of stuff that I wasn't sure about. So it made all of that contextually better. And then on top of that, it was in the middle of this game that I thought was just this like run and or
time
shooter
killer
looter.
essentially.
Yeah, and I was blown away by that. And that I think generally comes from that studio being I forget the
Digital
name.
Extremes, was it?
Digital Extremes. I think it comes from Digital Extremes being like kind of noobs, and so they're just like, what would be cool? And they've got a good grasp of what would be cool, and they've been slowly refining it over time. And I think now that Warframe is definitely a game that everyone should play, especially if you haven't played in like a number of years, because it's
Yeah, it's
a
been a
totally
while.
different game by now. Yeah, yeah. And if nothing else, grind through just unlocking the planets to get the story, and I promise you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, I'm even though I consider myself a gamer, I have like I don't know, roughly 300 titles on Steam. Maybe half of them I even finished because well, various reasons. I tend to
Yeah.
prefer more of a indie game genre than well, modern AAA titles. To be honest,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure
Yeah.
whether you find yourself in a position like, hey, I mean, this game is really nice. It's far from being AAA. I mean, it lacks a lot of good points, but it has really nice one big point that I really appreciate.
Well, I've got a weakness for a certain style and type of game and a particular genre, basically tactics games. So, I think it's Harebrained Schemes. They did Shadowrun and they did
Oh yeah, I
BattleTech.
played through that recently actually.
Yeah, Shadowrun was amazing. So that
The
was
second
really fun
one.
for
I
me.
mean, I remember the what was the order. So that was the actually let me just open it and we'll or do you remember the order in
But
which they came from? So
I
Shadowrun
think Hong Kong
Returns,
was the second
Shadowrun
one.
Hong Kong, and
Yeah,
then there was another one,
Dragon something,
Dragonfall.
Dragonfall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree that
they
the second one, where was the girl with the knife fingers, well, the claws. I forgot her name,
yeah, yeah.
but that was really
I
good.
don't
I
remember.
think. Um,
I think they were all good, but it was like a return to a genre that I've been missing out on, and that's one of the reasons that I took the Wasteland 3 job, was that I really wanted to do something in that space. Um, and
well,
it was really fun working on that Wasteland 3 team. That was like it was like water in a desert after years of being a mercenary, because the team was so like fun and accepting and very much collaborative and like building on each other. And I was just sad because at the end they laid everyone off except for like two people.
man, your life story is like full of sad moments and disappointment. I really hope that you have enough positive features in it so that you're not gonna be gloomy after a
Oh
while,
no, I'm fine. I'm
or maybe
fine. I'm
just
fine.
lack
I've
of
got my
sleep
family.
shows.
The lack of sleep isn't helping, but yeah, I've got my family. Like I've sort of separated the work stuff from the family stuff, and that way, I've got my family life as long as that's going good. And the one of the best things about living in Thailand is like, let's say the entire industry got shut down for some reason, like I don't know, a
Yeah.
nuclear blast takes out all of the major game
All of
studios
the
or something, and
narrative
there's just
part of the
yeah,
games across the world.
there's just no jobs for me left. I would have like 4 years of savings to go through in Thailand, at least, to keep me afloat till I figure something else out. And that's one of the things I didn't have in the U.S. It was always like, oh God, I've lost my
I hope
job
I'll make
and
it.
I'll be out on the street basically in 2 months if I don't find something.
Well, you
that
brought an
that was the,
interesting point. What would you do if not the thing that you're doing now? Like the alternative that you probably would always curious about. Like for me, I don't know, and open a dumpling shop or whatnot, but something on your end in that regard.
no, it would be writing. I would go full time into writing, and I have a bunch of novels that I need to finish, and I have screenplays that I need to get out there, and you know, it's always been
Hmm.
in fact, it was what I was going to do before I decided to go into games, as I was going to be a writer. And that's why I got most of an English degree before I ran out of money and had to drop out.
Speaking of novels, it's I mean, as a part of our like side projects on Russian website, we do occasionally stream visual novels. How you consider them
Mm.
as a good narrative experience, or it's like primarily 10 ways to undress a girl, normally like on Steam there's a certain category for that now, but it's really hard to find the just purely story driven visual novel. But for those of
I
yeah,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think the problem with all of the visual novels, or at least the ones that I've encountered so far, maybe there's really good ones, but they're not done from a narrative design perspective. They're done from a I'm telling a story perspective, and then a lot of the choices just don't matter, or they funnel you too hard, and then it feels like you don't have any agency in these stories, and that always pulls me right out of it, and I just can't continue on. As soon as I hit a choice and I feel like it betrayed what I was trying or intending, I'm out. And I think that's the major problem with most of them, and that's why that's one of the things I have my eye on is I'm working with Inky right now on a project that I can't discuss, but that's one of the things I sort of have in the back of my mind is like I should probably do a couple visual novels myself since I do have such a good narrative design sense
yeah.
that I'll probably be able to do a better one than the majority of the market has seen, but haven't done it yet.
Have you
Too
played
lazy.
The Life and Suffering of Sir Brante?
No, I haven't. Is that
So I think that you should put this on your wish list as well. Essentially, it felt like it's a visual novel. It's designed like a book. So it's a book, and then you play through it. And maybe I can just try to open on a screen The Life
I
and
got it.
Suffering. Yeah, but I'll just steal for our viewers to inspect while we're discussing it. Not really sure.
Mm.
There's no gameplay here. Come on. Oh my god. Anyway, the lack of production shows, guys. Sorry about that. The point of the game is that you live through the life of Sir Brante before he actually became Sir, I think. And you start as a child, and then you have constantly branching out decisions to make. Those decisions will affect your stats essentially. Well, it's not like strength, agility, but sort of like your fame, your family wealth, your I don't know religion
Reputation,
based points.
ability.
Yeah, and it's constantly giving you choice on a like every 2 minutes essentially. You have to make a choice, and most of
Huh.
those choices gonna have very important consequences in the future. And the branching is so
I'll check.
ridiculous to me. When I was playing, I was like, holy shit. I mean, the only problem is that it not necessarily lead to what you think it would lead.
Mm.
So I had to like, okay, I'm gonna pursue this particular path, and I'm playing and playing and playing. Then one decision made by me, maybe not very cautiously, just undermines everything I've done before, and I'm like on a totally different path now. It's like, okay, well let's be a cleric now. I don't know, and then you do that, you do that, you do that. Then okay, I'm gonna support this guy across all of his activities and endeavors, and then at some point because your stats weren't maxed out to the right value, because it constantly gives a check whether you pass for different category of your stats, and if it's not, they just don't give you an option unlocked to do a choice that you want. And so, well, I guess I'm betraying this guy I was rooting for. Oh well, let's see how that goes. So this game was very. I mean, I'm not a narrative designer, so I don't know, but I would be very curious for you to play and see what are your thoughts on this on, because
I'll check it out.
yeah, it's a
That
text equivalent of Dark Souls essentially. I would say.
it reminds me though of Disco Elysium a little bit. Though
Um,
Disco Elysium goes a
y-
different route in terms of like it's not that the story branches, it's that your mind branches.
yeah, I've seen some of the pieces. I never played through myself because I found it's a bit unsettling. I would say. I don't know. It's a
Uh
weird combination of
struggle
text.
do you struggle
Yeah,
with alcoholism? Is that
not necessarily. I mean, not at all actually.
Mm,
In fact, but it's
mm,
just I don't
mm,
know. It was just weird. Sometimes I find the game weird, and
mm.
I don't want to play that. But
Oh,
this.
I really enjoyed it.
Oh
Yeah.
really?
I'll yeah. Oh, for sure. I think Disco Elysium was I think my top game for that year.
Was it because
Um
of a lot of text in it? Because some people were like put away because of that. I mean, you constantly have to read so much dialogue in there. Or am
yeah, I mean
I?
that's what I'm
Yeah.
it's story.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
story
that's
driven.
for
That's the
you
thing.
because it's your specialization essentially. Like, yeah, let's check it
Yeah, yeah.
out.
It was a game for my type of player, I suppose.
Yeah, that's why I
Um,
think the Life and Suffering should be a good fit for you. Uh,
I'll definitely check
yeah.
it out. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm gonna ask some of the questions that guys were pre-made for me, so that we wouldn't make them too
Okay.
upset. Uh,
Right.
okay.
Don't upset them.
All right. So the top voted question was related to RTS in general, and I would say based on Blizzard games prior to that.
Hmm.
So where's the limit of fascinating balance? Well, interesting balance, so to speak. Meaning, uh, first it was StarCraft with 3 races, essentially. Then we have Warcraft with 4 races. Is there a maximum to those variations? Uh, I mean, throwing out the physical process of balancing them out, but I guess in terms of for people to be fascinated by how many options they have to play with, rather than okay,
Yeah.
I mean, we have 10 options, but I don't care about half of them.
Yeah. That I mean, that was the problem of Total Annihilation, wasn't it? That you could like literally hack together your pieces effectively and have this mishmash of crap on the field, and it all became 3D polygonal messes that no one really understood what was going on anymore. In terms of the number of factions, as long as each one is stylized and has a purpose within that world and like makes sense, I don't see an upper limit. Like I'd say it could go like as high as like 20 if you can find the right sort of setting and reasoning for all these different factions and each one makes sense. But in terms of differentiation, like generally 3 is the easiest simply
Yeah,
because, you know, uh that way there's not a one-to-one like in Warcraft 2. And with 3 you've got like, the high end, the low end, and then in between. so that's sort of the easiest way to do it. And then, obviously once you start getting into 4, 5, 6 different races, you have to find very interesting things to differentiate on. And you're going to find that because of the RTS genre in general is you're mining this, you're getting maybe a secondary resource here. How much variation can there really be? You can go pretty far. I don't think the limits have even been tested in anything that I've played. Um, but it has to be very inspired and contextually make sense. So
but
that's the
I
key.
would
Is like
assume that it's essentially you'll hit the ceiling of hey, I don't have time to balance those many units out. I mean, let's just settle on 4 and that then call it a day, essentially.
I don't think it has to be like that. I think what you do is you release with like 3 and then you add another one every 6 months. That's the way that I would approach it. Like if I were to work on an RTS in the future is like we start with these 3, these are the major 3 ones, and then we add a new campaign and a fourth race, and then we add a new campaign and a fifth race. And you can just do that in perpetuity if you have the right um lore and setting
Yeah.
in which that makes sense.
Well,
But so if you design it for that,
yeah, if for
yeah.
example, let's just say Blizzard decide to do Warcraft 4, and now because of the whole baggage of World of Warcraft, they have how many? Like
They're
four,
fucked.
4 plus 3 additional allied races. So we have like equivalent of
No.
what 20 roughly races in the
Yeah,
play.
yeah.
Would it make sense to like extend the classic roster of like 4 races with the more? And because essentially they have some lore for it, right? They designed a whole bunch of quests with the retail WoW already for like
Yeah.
Lightbringer, Draenei, like Void Elves, and some sort of variation of every. I mean, it's essentially recolor, let's be honest, but still, overall,
Yeah.
they say have some sort of background at least to begin with. So I'm
Oh,
curious
for
if it
sure.
would make sense for them to say, hey, would it be just a bonus campaign, let's call it that way, or we give the people to play with additional races and explore new mechanics apart from they get used to from Warcraft 3, let's say.
In the alternate universe in which I'm in charge of Blizzard, it would be exactly as I described, where we start with the 3 or 4 core races, and then we just add a new one every 6 months with its own campaign and with its own stuff and with new map editor additions and everything.
Yeah.
Because there's so many stories that you can tell in an RTS and like build up to something I think that's sort of the trap that most RTS campaigns fall into is like, oh, we have to have this bigger enemy for all of them to fight. When Warcraft 2 already solved this problem, it's like, nah, this race is going to be the one that conquers everyone and gets to the top. Basically, it's the Street Fighter 2 style of storytelling, where it's like,
You pass
it's
the
this
first
guy's
boss, who's the
story.
next one?
Yeah, it's this guy's story. He's going all the way to the top, and like then he defeats everyone and wins. And what's that like? And I don't know why more games don't do that because it's actually really interesting and makes perfect sense for an RTS. Of course, you want to defeat everyone and be the race that wins the day, whatever that may mean for that race.
But
So
in
I
Warcraft
don't
3,
know.
I would say it was really nicely done because you get to explore different point of views, essentially the same events played out through different sides. That
Right,
was the
but
most entertaining part for me. And I'm a casual RTS gamer. I'm not like pro, who's doing like ladder every day several times.
yeah, yeah.
But from
But
just casual
e-
perspective.
even Warcraft 3, it sort of got weird when some like the Night Elf sort of story was kind of weird in comparison. Like the human story was the most compelling one. It had a very
Well,
strong
we can
arc
relate to
from
it because I think that's the main part of the
yeah,
greatness of the
for
campaign.
sure. But it also had the most interesting, twists and turns and everything.
Yeah, I would agree.
Whereas, the rest of them were sort of inevitabilities as they're marching towards a goal. um and I don't know, a little bit more boring. Like if you ask anyone about the story of Warcraft 3, they're going to talk about Arthas for sure.
Yeah,
And
I
probably not
mean,
much else.
well, maybe a bit of a work campaign as well, but yeah, that's the only thing. I
Mm,
mean, I played Warcraft 3 campaign a long time ago, and that's the main features that I retain in my mind. It's Arthas, Luther, obtaining the Frostmourne, coming back to
yep.
Lordaeron,
Killing
Sylvanas,
daddy.
Illidan, the end.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the
That's
milestones that
basically
I've can only recollect. All right.
Malfurion who?
Yeah. There's so many. What you just sometimes I think like it was a year ago or something. Whether I was doing some WoW quest or not, I just found some name that sound vaguely
Mm.
familiar, and I just dive into WoW Wiki, and I just keep diving and diving and diving and diving. And it's like from one character to another. Like there's so much stuff that just completely get, I
Yeah.
mean, backgrounded. I
It's
would say
it's im-
because of the nature of the
it's
MMO.
yeah, it's impossible to understand the entire story of WoW. And I'm hoping this whole thing with Zoval is going to end with the reset of the world. Like it seems like that's what they're leading towards, but maybe
So
not.
you think they're gonna do like the Final Fantasy, essentially like Realm Reborn kind of stuff, and then the
I hope
hey,
so.
nothing happened, guys.
I
Because
mean, no, I mean something happened because in Final Fantasy 14 when you play through it, they reference that event. Like it's a big deal. So something happened and it's pretty clear something happened. But they could do the same thing with WoW. And also they really need to fix up their design in terms of like they're just so far behind in terms of like compare it to a game like even Guild Wars 2. Like
yeah,
that game's just so much more action packed and fun and
well, I
like WoW
think they
needs
keep
to
borrowing some features from it, or I mean, vice
they're borrowing,
versa.
but they
It
need
is
to
like over the years, it's really hard to tell who started what thing first.
WoW's definitely stealing from Guild Wars 2. Um
Well, the World
it's
Quest for
just time to
sure.
do a
That's
reset. Yeah, they just need to do a reset. It's just time.
well. Let's hope it's not gonna be just like playing classic WoW again, because I think J. Allen Brack
No,
was
no.
a bit right a bit that regard when he said like you think you won that but you don't, because when I come back to classic WoW, I like play a couple of days like yeah that's great I guess, and then I just stopped doing that because it's like back in the days that was I think we make an adventure of just the whole process of leveling. We have so much free time, so many unknowns. Now when we already know all this stuff, it's like I know exactly the chain of quests I have to go like to get to 60,
Right.
and it's mostly
But
doing chores of killing like 12 mobs and then on to the next one.
well, I mean, back then it was the exploration that was the
Yeah,
most of the
exactly.
fun, and but you also felt like you had agency because I could go level anywhere. So I'm going to go explore and find something cool. And oh, these quests are leading me to this and that. Um, I think if they do a reset, they can change the world such that you're doing all that exploration over again, and it's like not so obvious what to do.
But
And
would it
I might
be,
even go.
yeah, even
"Hmm,
the task that they're ready to undertake though? That's a
no,
huge,
obviously,
huge
obviously
thing.
not. Never mind.
The next problem would be like you keep hiring game designers and quant designers for a game that is essentially like how many years it's been. It's really hard to
Yeah,
like keep topping what. Well, clearly they struggle with that already. Just well, like where the story would go. As for me, as soon as you do time travel, you're screwed because first of all, you
yeah,
open so many doors that you won't be able to close narratively, and
yeah.
like loopholes that being unplugged, and then just like what's after that? It's like Avengers Endgame thing. Like okay, we've done it. That's it. I mean, for me, after that, it was over because I don't like you time travel. That's it. I'm done. I don't want to keep
Well,
track of what's going on where.
that's the problem with the lore, though, is that no one can keep track of any of it, and so they'll have
Except
like
Red
these
Shirt guy,
momentous
but
except Red Shirt Guy, who corrects them every once in a while, which just shows that they're not even keeping up on their own lore. But like they expect everyone to know about some obscure events, like that some are even from novels and stuff that just no one could possibly keep track of. And it's like, no, guys,
yeah, I
all of
don't need
that
to do
has
a
to be
pop
in the
quiz before
game.
I play the game. Like, come on.
Well, you do if you want to really understand what's going on. So that's the problem.
Oh man.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, we'll see. I'm
that's
I'm
bad narrative
curious. I
design.
mean, I tried to bring my wife to play WoW a bit just out of curiosity because she was playing Genshin Impact like
Mm.
crazy. I thought like, oh, maybe it's time
Oh,
to show her. Wow, we start with classic. That was a big mistake because it bored her out rather quickly. I mean, we
yeah.
didn't even make to East Side logging camp in Elven Forest, and it's like, yeah, no.
Ooh.
So we tried retail WoW. It was a bit better, but I was afraid the sheer like variety of things to do will overwhelm her, and she was, yeah, get back to reading manga for now. But yeah, for now, Genshin Impact is still top choice for her to play. So
Mm.
coming back to
And
the
it's a
fact that yeah, mobile games are a bit starting to get up there in this regard.
And it's a clone of Zelda Wind Waker, so or not Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, yeah, yeah, graphics
Yeah,
has some resemblance, and
Not
yeah,
just some.
well, let's be honest. It's a nice, visually pleasing style to like. You're not
No, I'm
getting
not.
tired to just look at it compared to
No,
like some
I'm not
other.
denigrating it at all. I'm just saying the inspiration is extremely clear, and if I bet that your girlfriend would love Breath of the Wild.
I don't know. She's pretty sad. She doesn't really like to try some new stuff. I mean, and I think the Genshin Impact has because when it has some pay to win mechanic, and we definitely not gonna
Mm,
pay anything for her playthrough.
right.
Hope she doesn't hear that. But I think because of that, she has lots of time to
Mm.
devote to this game before she actually like get to the end. I'm not really sure if there is an end because to me it's like they're releasing new stuff every month or so that
No,
gets
there's no
new.
end. It's a game as a service for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, fortunately, I mean not fortunately, surprisingly enough, we played through Star Wars: The Old Republic almost to the end of the main quest line for the class. I'm not really sure whether you played that one or not.
I did,
But
yeah.
yeah, the big
I
difference
I've
would be
released that.
that all the dialogues are narrated. So
Yes.
except like compared that to WoW when you just like, okay, accept, okay, well, where should I kill? You have to listen through, understand the
Yeah.
situation, pick some answers. Maybe even though they didn't matter in overall plot, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter gameplay wise because you still have to make a choice. So like some sort of interactive activity for you to play around with. So would you say that is it a necessary good thing when you have so much quest voiced and like implemented to the point of like every mediocre task that normally in WoW would be just accept kill for uh, gore tasks and then come back would give you a
Yeah.
whole like plot summary of the guy narrating. Yeah, I get to this planet so many years ago and blah blah blah. And you just will it help to dive into the environment, so to speak, from your point of view, or
I
is
mean,
it just
it's
waste of
certainly
time?
more. No, it's certainly more immersive, but it has to be done in a way that is respectful of the player's time. So it can't be like just every damn quest, like some
But
guy
it is.
waxing poetic about his. Yeah, well, that's the problem then.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. If it's used, it should be used sparingly, and the voiceover moments should be pretty critical. And whatever information they're giving you has to do one of the three things: either give you a goal, progress a character story, or progress the background story. And if it doesn't do one of those three things, then it is a waste of the player's time, and they're being a dick by using it at all.
Would you think, narratively speaking, it's a good thing that most of the MMOs now consider a player as a chosen one, essentially? So he's not just a,
Mm.
you know, gear in a overall mechanism, but rather the only savior of the universe, and that's every player. So, for example, in the same the Old Republic, if you play Sith,
Yeah.
at the end you just get to the council. No matter that it's only like 9 people on the council, every player who's a Sith is on a council. So it's a bit
No,
weird
I
from
I think
logical point of view, but I
it's
think it's a
immersion
trend.
breaking to me. I think it's bad. I don't like that. I don't even like that the the one trope storyline thing anyways. I always find it irritating to find out that, oh yeah, you happen to be the one. Can't I
Champion,
just
only you
be
can save us.
yeah, can't I just be the guy who's really good at something, and or even make it a player agency thing where I determine what my character is supposedly good at, where what his place is in the world. But no one does that sort of stuff, so
Was it the case in
it's
the old
much.
MMOs? Because I never played that one before the one. I mean, I played Star Wars Galaxies a day, and my laptop crashed
Mm.
after that because it was at the time top-notch graphics for my computer to handle. But I think that was the case with Star Wars Galaxy and maybe similar sort of games where there's no narrative. You
Oh yeah,
just appear and do stuff, and that's it.
yeah, yeah. EverQuest and Galaxies were definitely like that, where you're living in a world. And it wasn't so successful for Galaxies just because it was so difficult to do anything without other people, and they didn't do a really good job of getting people together. Whereas with EverQuest, it actually worked really well. And one of the reasons that WoW was even created was because of how compelling EverQuest made it to go adventure with people and do raids and things like that. Like, and it wasn't like spelled out for you. You just had to figure this shit out. And that sense of discovery carried that game for a long time. But it also made it very niche, which
Yeah.
is what
So
WoW
you think it
effectively
wouldn't be
fixed.
possible for modern games to lend some sort of a same similar feeling without diving into guiding the player by the hand to a specific like point before like, hey,
Well, I think
now do whatever.
no, I think Dragon Age Origins actually has a good template for how it could be done, where each sort of race and character combo determines your background, and then you go through an introductory plot that sort of teaches you about that race and about your place in the world because of those choices, and that makes the world feel more compelling to you because I am this character and this is my background. But no MMO has done too good a job with that. They all have sort of things where if you're a race, you have your race and class quests that sort of give you a feeling of placement in the world, but they're all very lightly done. And it gets lost later on down the line and no longer is important, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate.
The only that come to mind is Eve Online, where you just drop in the world and
Mm.
like, well, shit. How
Good
how
luck.
how do I start my ship again?
And then you get griefed in the first 10
Oh
minutes.
yeah,
Some guy
dude.
just
Oh my god. Yeah, I think I was playing for several months, and then I because I'm that sort of person who just enjoys mining. Just come to an
yeah.
asteroid, hit mine, and just do whatever in the background and just listen to jazz or whatnot. And
Yep.
one time I wanted some specific mining laser which is located in like low sec system where the government NPCs cannot guard you anymore when you undock from a station. So I went there, I purchased a laser, I never even bothering insurancing my ship. I dock off and I get killed instantly. Say, well,
Oh
I
no.
had a good run. Screw this game.
They probably detected you didn't have insurance, and that's why they came after
Yeah, but
you.
that's sort. I mean, it's on one hand, those types of things are really nice because you get to explore freely, and like this whole universe changes with the whatever decision making the majority of players are behind. So let's
Yeah, yeah.
say like those corporation wars that you read in the news, in the gaming news, you never heard of it like prior to that or after.
Mm.
It's like, well, our servers almost crashed when they had like the battle of the millennia or whatnot, and the equivalent of several $1,000s were lost in ship value. And they're like, wow, those
Yeah,
guys are
yeah,
insane. Next. So
yeah. Yeah, headlines.
yeah, I'm not really sure
No,
whether there's any MMO for you
mm.
that at least lands a spot. Yeah, it's solid enough. I could play that from time to time.
There's one that I haven't played yet, but should be the one. What's it called?
Yeah, I'm curious
Story
now.
something.
Story.
Uh,
Interesting.
shoot, where'd it go?
Yeah, because modern MMOs kind of. Well, I play retail WoW from time to time just to. I'm doing the old world quests mainly because
Uh-huh.
I'm not usually following the branching plot of the modern expansions. So,
Book of Travels.
I never heard of that one. Is that
It
fantasy?
was a Kickstarter.
Oh, okay.
It's unique.
Okay.
It's kind of like a fantasy. It's definitely old school, but like it's a story game, but it's an MMO, and it has permadeath is one of the
Oh, so it's
things
like
people complain
Ultima
about.
thing.
Kinda. I haven't played it yet, so I can't really. I
Yeah,
only remember the
I don't
Kickstarter
think
pitch.
I think I'm too casual for permadeath scenarios.
Well, after you die, there's like a whole thing, like a whole other thing you do.
Oh, really?
But I don't know. I haven't played it
Lying
yet.
in a
I can't
grave and
recommend it
hoping
yet.
you'll get resurrected.
No, 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 it's a totally different thing. But I haven't played it yet, so I can't say yay or nay on
Okay,
it. And
I
it's
got it on
also
Steam
it's on
here.
early access as well, so I don't
Yeah,
want to.
let me share my screen so that people could at least
Yeah, I see.
see what's going on. So, Book of Trial. Interesting. So, is it?
It- It's quite unique.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even understand whether it's just cinematic intro or is it the game. Oh, wait, that was the gameplay. Is it a
The
2D?
gameplay takes place. Yeah, it's like a 2D on a 3D
Huh.
thing. Uh, I think that was an early prototype, but the game's actually playable right now.
Yeah, and the
So
reviews are very positive. Huh. Interesting.
yeah, I haven't played it yet, but when I watched the Kickstarter, it was like, oh, this is 100% my kind of game. Oh, you have to use emoticons and things like that too.
Hmm.
So
Cute. Yeah, that was. I wasn't expecting something like that. I wasn't even aware that was a. It doesn't look MMO ish to me. I mean, I get to like isometric ones. I still get those ones. Like well,
yeah,
from
what is
recent
what
like
is the T in TMORPG? What is that T? Traveling? What is the T?
TNT.
No, you see
Uh,
right there, it has in the description. It says it's a TMORPG. What is the T? I can't read it because it's
TMORPG.
in Russian.
Oh,
No, no, at the top.
at the top
In this description here.
here.
In the second from the bottom.
This one.
TMORPG. What is the T?
Ah, I have no idea
What it
because
doesn't say? Oh.
tiny maybe tiny MMO tiny.
Oh.
Yeah.
That was the most disappointing
Yeah.
reveal.
Well, I give them that. It is tiny. It seems like it, but
Oh, it is for sure, yeah.
I mean, I'm not really
Uh
sure whether it's description of the character model or the whole world size. But I guess at some point you will find out whether it's tiny enough in that regard or not. Okay, let's finish up the game design question with the last one from the
yeah.
Rooster, because I know you're a busy man and we have to still briefly talk about NFTs yet.
Oh god.
Okay.
You don't have to.
Well, I mean, it's up to you. If you don't want to, we can omit that
No, no,
easily.
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Okay, that will be probably a technical question, but I guess since you're a level designer for Warcraft 3, and it is Warcraft 3 question, what do you know? it is regarding the mechanic of using water as a means of enhancing your level. For example, like in Warcraft 2, you do have some naval missions, so to speak, or at least
Mhm.
incorporated them in overall battlefield. Why you went away from them in Warcraft 3?
Simplest answer is that heroes are not conducive to sea combat stuff. So if your hero dies in a transport on the way to an island, you feel like absolute shit. So it just didn't it we didn't have a solution at the ready, and all of the things that we were coming up with were problematic, and so we just dropped like sea being a primary component of Warcraft 3 because heroes were so important and we were innovating so much in that direction. There's no technical limitation really that was preventing it. We could have done something. It's just I think gameplay wise, it would have been frustrating for the majority of players and ultimately detracted from what the game was about.
So if you get a transporter that aerial, it's okay, but not the naval one.
As long as he doesn't drop you in the ocean. But when it's aerial, you have a lot more opportunities to escape because it's a straight line away
Yeah.
from whatever's attacking you. So,
All right. Well, fair
and
enough. I hope that answers the question, Lisorius. So yeah, that's the guy who's
you'll
making the
you'll
biggest
also
stream
note
test
that
event.
the
Yep.
you'll also note that the when the air transport gets destroyed, it tries very hard to dump them onto land. Like it fudges it quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, my only entertainment lately connected to Warcraft 3 would be just trying to recall how unit responds to certain commands rather than actually some game mechanics. I don't know why, but it's something that like stuck in my mind, like Frostmourne hungers. Ah, at last. And I don't remember like details and missions, but I remember some of the voiceovers in that regard. All right.
Yeah, just sounds.
Yeah, the controversial topic, because I
Oh,
was
right.
fascinated with your response to me when we're establishing this scheduled chat. Uh, NFTs. For those of you who are
Yep.
not aware, let's just do a quick brief. So NFTs, non fungible token. Majority of people think that is you essentially buy an art or whatever, a music or not. But intellectual rights
Mhm.
do not work that way. Essentially, what NFT is currently, as I understood it, whoever is doing that on a blockchain essentially sells you a position in a virtual queue to stand in. So you have like,
Mhm.
imagine that you have a spreadsheet of Excel and they put in you in like A2 cell and just put a picture next to it and say, well, here you go. Now you're an A2 cell and here's a picture, but you don't actually own this picture. So that's why I think
Right.
majority of the gaming community pushing for not using NFTs with game connected at all, because essentially
Right.
it's a closed club of people playing a musical chair, and whoever buys it last will leave with nothing, essentially, because after that nobody would want it. What are your take on this thing? And maybe I
Yeah.
described something wrong, so correct me.
Right. So no, I mean that's accurate to a point. But let's take it one step further. So you've got
Sure.
your name in the Excel sheet in that block. Now, in addition, anyone can reference that block and know that you have that block.
Yeah.
Therefore, in any game that supports it, they know you have this thing in your wallet, right? So let's say for Ubisoft, for example, let's say that you were playing uh,
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed, sure, and you collect a bunch of shit, and then they give you an NFT, and you've connected your wallet, and now that thing says that you own this thing. Now you can go to anyone else and say, "Hey, I'm quitting Assassin's Creed 2 or whatever. Would you like this thing, or could I sell it to you?" Or you put it on a marketplace and sell it there.
So
Now
is it
you've gotten
like
some
real
value.
real money auction house? Is that the same that they had in Diablo 3 essentially, mechanic wise? Is that you're trying to describe
No,
vaguely?
it it is and it isn't. So the reason it's similar is that it would be you could do it on an auction house, but in addition to that, you could also just give it to someone. Um, but the problem is that auction house only exists on Blizzard server. So Blizzard shuts down the auction house, guess what? Everything on it is gone. There is no more auction house. You can't buy, sell, or trade. With the wallet, with the NFT, you can. In fact, even if Ubisoft were to completely shut down and die, and there was no more anything from Ubisoft, you still have that thing in your wallet. You could go to OpenSea and put it up for auction there. Own a piece of history. The dead, now defunct studios of Ubisoft. Here's an NFT from them from, Assassin's Creed.
An epic sword that
So,
you can obtain in game, even though if the game is not yet already supported. Is that
well,
what you're trying to
right.
describe?
In essence, it's a digital good only at that point. But the key to understanding why NFTs have a positive future for games is utility. And utility simply means that it does things in different games. So let's say that Ubisoft continues to create NFTs and they create them for all of their games. And then they have cross game working NFTs. So you get something in Assassin's Creed, and then when you get the new Watch Dogs, that thing is like a piece of art that you can put up in your room in Watch Dogs. So you start developing a library of stuff just from playing the games. And then that library of stuff can be bought, sold, and traded. And or you can hold on to it and continue using it in future games. And Ubisoft has every incentive to make any NFT that they create have interactions in all of their different games. But no one's done this yet. They just haven't realized the full potential of these NFTs internally. And then you get to cross-platform stuff, where let's say that Activision Blizzard, or sorry, Microsoft and Ubisoft.
Not yet, not yet. Still have time.
Yeah, you get the idea. Let's say Microsoft and EA decide to have a series of NFTs that work in Minecraft and in what's an EA equivalent game?
Of Minecraft?
Yeah,
FIFA? I don't know.
I guess there isn't one.
Yeah, I don't think
Uh,
so. There is.
yeah. Well,
But
let's
that
say
goes to the
that
point then, right? So it's not very easily convertible to necessarily even similar genres because you don't have, well, if you have a
it's not
particular diamond sword made in a Minecraft, let's just say epic diamond sword that dropped from whatever
sure.
mob, you put it as an
Yeah,
NFT to somebody who's not playing Minecraft, how are you going to get this equivalent of something else in a totally different game? It's a bit bizarre to me, even though that's the name of my
it is
channel. But
bizarre, but it's not. It's just a lot of design work. So someone has to sit there and like figure these things out, and no one's doing that work. But because no one's doing that work, no one can think of these things, and they're just going, "Oh, it all sounds stupid." But it's not stupid. It's actually
yeah,
cool if
you
you
know
think
what I
about it this
imagine?
way.
I
Hmm.
imagine Wreck-It Ralph when they travel in between the arcades, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
guy is like just taking an item from one game and just bringing it into another game. I mean, I
And
can
totally
visualize
destroying
it
it.
as a cartoon, yeah, but from
Yeah.
a
Well,
functional utility point of view, I don't get it. I mean, I get it if it was an MMO. So but essentially, people try to show off stuff, especially if it's a
mhm,
rare stuff, to other people. If you obtain something
mhm.
for Assassin's Creed and Ubisoft died and this game is no longer supported, what's the point of having that? It's nobody would see it in there, except you. Well, you will have to be very specific, I don't know, connoisseur, that sort of thing.
Right. Well, it's like, what's the point of a movie poster? Like it has some purpose because it existed. The movie is, not in theaters anymore, but you still want to save those old movie posters because they go up in value. We just don't have a digital equivalent of that. But if you think of Magic the Gathering as the baseline for what NFTs could and should be, um, it's a very obvious value proposition in that you purchase stuff over time as you play these games, and you build up this library of stuff, and then when you're done you sell it off to someone else who can then use it. That's it.
Yeah, so basically
And
that means that the current implementation is completely wrong. So instead of,
correct.
yeah, so that's where the trouble comes from, and that's where I think you have to educate people, and you try and educate people on.
I'm trying. I have a series coming soon about NFTs. It's currently being edited. Um, but I also have the item podcast Into the Endless Metaverse where I discuss these things. And it's not like one of those NFT podcasts where I'm like, yeah, buy this shitcoin, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
No,
this will go
I
up.
tear shit apart. I tear shit apart and I talk about what the real versions of these things should be and what to look for with these NFT gaming studios that are they're clearly in over their heads and they don't know what they're doing. And I say that as someone involved with 8 of them, and I'm sure some of them might hear this podcast or see my upcoming series and get
Yeah,
worried
guys,
about
let's
the
share
sort of things
it
I'm saying.
and make sure they do. But I think that
Yeah,
the situation, yeah, that you're describing is quite far in the future. To
it
me,
is.
if we bring the equivalent of movie poster, so why would I have some item in the game that I play like 1 hour? If it's actively supported, and if not supported, I play it and then I forget about it. So for me
Yeah.
to have a digital item that I put in a game and I just have the aesthetic value, for example, let's
Mm.
just say Cyberpunk will blow up in terms of they start so much work in terms of DLCs and developing the world that people will have to come back to it and like have their apartment decorated or whatnot. So for me
Mm.
to have to this item of digital poster within the game to have value means that I have to spend a lot of time in there. And that's where probably virtual reality at some point should come into play. Because if you
Yeah,
just
it will.
live like Ready Player One sort of life and then you have all this stuff to accommodate your virtual apartment,
Yeah.
then it's
Well, just
probably, yeah.
think about like every game you play, the first thing you get is a NFT of an avatar, and then you can earn the rest of the avatars from the game. And then you go into the metaverse, and now you can pick from all the avatars that you've collected. And you can decorate your wall with little statuettes of all of the avatars from all the games you've played. And other people can come into your room and check that out, which is
Yeah,
something that
I think.
currently does exist.
Yeah, they do that in. I think it's like both. The Old Republic has their own like apartments that you can purchase and decorate and invite other players there. Genshin Impact, I think, as well. Maybe I
Hmm.
assume Final Fantasy and Lost Ark even to have, even though Lost Ark probably have
I,
it like behind
uh,
huge paywall, but
I don't know, but yeah,
you still have
probably.
to. You can at least potentially establish your own like manor and put the NPCs in there and they like just do stuff and then you decorate the whole thing. But I usually was
Yeah,
connected bypassing this NFT step and just like, okay, it's either time or money or both, and you get the stuff. So
yeah.
for this thing to introduce additional, well, I would say rarity that influence both essentially,
Mhm.
it's a bit hard to imagine at today's standards, I would say.
It's hard to imagine from the perspective of how we currently do digital goods, which is like infinite, everything's infinite.
Yeah,
But
copy, copy, copy.
that isn't it isn't necessarily the best way to do it. So let's say for example, take an MMORPG for example. There's only let's say that you release the game initially and you purchase a copy and you have an NFT in your wallet that allows you access to the game. The reason to limit that is to say like only so many people can be on the servers and otherwise the entire experience is detrimental to any new players. So something that Final Fantasy 14 had to do recently was to stop
Yeah,
selling the
stop
game.
free copies of the game.
So instead of that, imagine simply that there's a certain number of these NFTs that are the game, and once they're purchased out, no more can be purchased until they have updated their servers or done something, and then they can sell some more. Well, in the meantime, those NFTs have a significant amount of value, and you can some people can resell them and whatnot.
So, yeah, to elaborate on that example, imagine the active player of Final Fantasy. He played through most of the content already. He wants to take a break, and he has a key to a server, essentially. It doesn't necessarily
Yep.
mean that to his particular account, just to access a server and to create an account and blah, 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 blah. He puts it
Yep.
on some auctions like, hey guys, if you want to take my key for a ride, you can. Or is it like lending, renting, or is it
You
just
could do both.
plain buying? Oh,
Yeah, you could do both. You could rent it or you could give it or sell it. Um, it's up to
interesting.
the player what they want to do because the smart contract determines whatever you're going to do. So you could say, I'm renting this for this time period for this amount of money. So anyone who's like bored with the FF14 or just wants to make some money because they're not playing that much and they know everyone's trying to get in on the servers right now, they put it up for auction. Here's a 3 month period for $500 or whatever, something ridiculous, and then they make some money off of simply having been an early adopter of the game, and that's sort of one of those weird utility cases where it's quite an interesting space. It is unfortunately capitalism, but
Yeah, I mean, and that's sort all the sorts of legal matters that had to be taken care of before it's actually can be officially done without people thinking like, do I get tricked? Is this
well,
really the thing?
that's one of the biggest problems of NFTs is all the fucking scams and the rug pulls and just the like if you ever get a message from anyone on like Discord or Telegram from someone saying, "Hey, we got this special deal on this NFT or whatever," that's a fucking scam. They're going to steal shit
Well,
from your
every
wallet.
every
Don't
time
fucking
I hear a
respond.
message starting, we have a special deal, no matter whatever follows that, I was like, well, not for me then. How do you even get my
Yeah,
email? If I want a deal, I'll contact you, okay? So,
exactly. That's the
so
thing. Like if you want these NFTs or anything like that, you really have to figure out where they are and what they're doing in order to even get close to one.
yeah. And we have some
But
people complimenting your work on Warcraft 3 in chat.
thanks.
So, yeah, guys, you can actually give a like and subscribe to David, and I think he will be pleased with that feedback as well. So, you were saying,
I
sorry,
will.
I
Oh, I was saying
stole
that
your train of thought.
the vast majority of NFTs are scams right now. I actually don't even recommend getting into the space except if you are keen to learn what's going on. But like buying an NFT is such a daunting thing right now simply because the vast majority of them have absolutely no value. I've even created a few myself for artist friends trying to figure out how it works.
Hmm.
And ultimately, how it works is you then create other wallets and then purchase it yourself in order to increase the value and get
Yeah,
other people to
exactly.
purchase. Yeah,
So
so it's
you get
all
a couple of
scams.
friends, and then you'd make sure the blockchain is actually noting all the transactions, and then somebody outside of your friend pool will take a note of that and try to get on an action, and you just sell it, and you're won. You won the game.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh well.
Well, you scammed someone because you
Well,
made
I
them think
mean,
something had
it's
value when
their
it really
fault.
didn't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Sure,
I'm not sure
sure.
how
But
much
I,
free time you have because I try to make sure that we're not overstepping our allowed.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, I have more questions to go
It's
if
Saturday.
you. All right.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Cool. Okay. We refer to our Russian help chat again. Uh. Well, some of the points we covered, but I mean, it's like they wanted to hear your thoughts on game dev in general, considering the
Mm,
well, you covered the mobile games, I guess, because
yeah.
they're relatively easy to make, and given the mechanics design, you get a lot of money. So the one
Yep.
that you mentioned is like just collect three and you're done, and then like something happens, the fireworks or some gems fall off,
Extra
and you just
games.
collect them.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of loot boxes. What do you
Hmm.
think about those? Like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it just wrongly implemented?
It's terrible.
There you go,
I
guys.
mean, the way to do it correctly, I always fall back to Magic the Gathering, is like there's a certain value in every pack that you're going to get like some commons, some rares, and some uncommons, or one uncommon, and then like a chance at a legendary or something like that. There's a way to do it where it's not total shit. The problem with most gotcha, so gotcha is the term that comes from Japan, which is
The small
it's a
toys in
machine.
the slot machine.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I think it means like crying child because the
Okay.
90% of the time you don't get the thing that you wanted. And that's the thing. Like it's like a 0.003% chance of whatever the top thing is most of the time. And when it comes to a game like Genshin Impact, for example, like they are 100% gotcha. And if there's some particular high end character that you really, really want, you can spend upwards of $1,000 to try and get it and still not get it. So I don't think that's a very ethical way to monetize things. I understand why they do it, but without there's no aftermarket for Genshin Impact. And this is one of the reasons that I think NFTs are the future of this, is that maybe you get a legendary that you didn't want, but someone else has the legendary you want
Yeah.
and you want to trade.
Yeah, but
That's
that
where I
doesn't
think
make point
NFTs.
for a developer, right? Because they will get money either way. if the person who didn't get what they want just keep buying stuff. Well, that given the scenario that they are okay with just buying more stuff until they get stuff that they want.
Right. Well, it reduces whale monetization,
Yeah.
but I think that's a good thing for the consumers, and that's why I like NFTs. It's just not being used that way. So
Well, then
that's the
we're
problem.
getting on the point of discussion like what's the goal of any company essentially is to make money, and they very
No,
rarely trade off it with like, hey, let consumer feel good for once about the way that they spend money on the game. So
I just think that humanity has a backwards way of thinking. I think that the goal of any company should be to improve humanity, and I just
oh,
don't
I
think
totally agree with that. I mean,
we
I
don't have that
my
mindset.
dream is to make a legacy in any sort of way that will prove people to like do at least one step towards the right direction, and be that
Right.
creating some sort of visual entertainment while working on movies, or like doing a podcast that is entertaining enough and maybe people will find out something new. I think I had some of examples where I just talk with people and we mentioned some things, and then some viewers like go and check that things out, and it's like, wow, this is the most amazing thing that I've discovered in a while, so thank you for that. And I was like,
Mm.
yeah, that's a time well spent for me. So
Yeah, exactly. It's like planting those seeds and stories and ideas of collaboration and building each other up instead of tearing each other down. That's kind of what I'm going for, and I don't know if I'm being successful in planting those seeds, but I hope so.
is there any particular game that you would be that you wish you would worked on, or at least like on a franchise,
Mm.
or that you thought you'd like, you know what, I have very nice ideas that could have been, implemented better in that game, and I wish
Yeah,
could.
Cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah,
I
we didn't go
I actually
far.
applied.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
no, it would have been Cyberpunk 2077 because I applied for it and I got an interview, and basically in the during the interview they basically said like, yeah, I don't think we really need you. We have guys here in Poland who can write like a Californian and blah blah blah. And I'm like,
So why they
okay, dude.
set up the interview in the first place then? What they
I
expect
I
from it?
think I think they saw my resume and then set up the interview, and then the dude who was in charge was just a dick. Yeah, I think that's what happened.
Do you think
So
there's
someone who
some sort of a pattern once more time? Because it's like every time you mention some ex-employer, it comes down to like, yeah, those are a bunch of assholes. Yeah, I didn't like that one.
not all of them. It's usually one or two individuals at each company, and they just happen to be gatekeepers for my area of expertise. That tends to be what
Yeah, I think
happens.
it's much harder for story purposes. I mean, if you're an environment artist,
Mm,
you can, you model a nice house, let's just say, and maybe
mm,
somebody at the top say, yeah, well, maybe just model it a bit better in that way, because I think that way
mm.
it looks more cool. Even though if you disagree,
Yeah,
you still get to use your skills and you know do stuff and it potentially maybe improve or not. But at least
yeah,
you get to make it, and like, okay, well, there's some sort of satisfaction at least. With you have to
yeah.
completely abandon the stuff and rewrite it, for example, and people will
Hmm.
never get to see the dropped out version of it. While with the house, you have still
Yep,
have some resemblance
yep,
of
yep.
initial.
I I have entire worlds that are dead and hiding in
Yeah.
in the background of some of the games I've worked on. Yeah,
So coming back to
it's
Cyberpunk,
sad.
what do you've done different? I mean, maybe we dive into spoilers. So guys, please play Cyberpunk. I guess I don't know
No,
whether it's
I won't.
okay now.
I won't do any spoilers.
All right,
I'll
then
just say
cool,
this:
cool.
like, the Skyrim did a better job with the NPCs having lives and stuff than fucking Cyberpunk did. And if you can't beat Skyrim on that point, what are you doing an open world for at all?
Yeah, I would
So,
even go further because the city doesn't feel alive to me. I mean, it was
mm,
huge. I give them that. I mean, it's like some of the areas were accessible vertically wise, so like you can go to like
yeah,
Mega Block from movie The Dread or whatever. I forgot how those structures called in actual Cyberpunk, but the
mm,
the Mega Block buildings with thousands or 10,000s residents in there, and you can just walk somewhere and explore. And to some extent, like you see the guys like doing the gym, some of them like sitting at this ramen shop that is like adjacent to the wall. But
yeah,
when you leave that area and just go around the corner, it's just Like
Nothing
how this game
really.
told when you just a toad and you get to another side of the screen and there's just vertical bars moving that way. That's how it felt to me
Yep.
when I just going out in the street on Cyberpunk, essentially.
Yeah, they're missing all of the nuance and stuff, and all of the like tangential storytelling that's supposed to happen within these cities. Like these people need to have activities that they're doing between whatever you're doing. So they should have routines morning, noon, and night, or at least a few key characters should. They just didn't do any of that, as far as I can tell. But when you start your playthrough, it does feel really much alive because you're going through the main story quest, and so you're meeting characters all the time, and there's all the side quests are all available there, so you're running into new
Yeah.
characters all the time. By the time I had wiped the map of everything possible, like the world felt totally dead and uninteresting, and that was where it shined in terms of showing me like that they really didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, it's
But
like
oh well.
coming back to the same feature. If you mention Skyrim, there probably stuff.
Mm.
If you think that you completed the game and you played through every possible quest, there is a good chance that you didn't, and there's still something
You
left for you to explore. And
for
unfortunately, that
sure.
exact feeling is not transferable to Cyberpunk. First of all, I get bored of exploring a Cyberpunk at some point because it
Oh yeah,
feels well, especially in the night
because there's
city, it feels
literally nothing.
yeah, it's
There's
like,
literally
well, I
nothing.
mean, at least give me an indication of what things might happen. Because the random encounters in
Nothing.
Cyberpunks are not, first of all, not that random. Second of all, doesn't
Yeah.
give you the satisfaction of exploring them. Like, yeah, well, okay,
There's only two that
that
I can
happened.
think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the monk who you can randomly encounter and you do like the VR meditation. And then there was one other thing, but I can't remember what it is off the top
The
of my
one
head. But
thing
either
that
way,
yeah, go for it. Sorry.
it's just not enough. Whereas like in a game like Skyrim, like if you go through a certain town at a certain time of night, you might run into the kid who's like practicing rituals for the Dark Brotherhood or whatever. And
Yeah, but
like there's
this
just
leads
all sorts of little stuff.
to the whole story, right? So let me actually
Hmm.
show you something. Uh, okay, I'll close that, and I share my screen with you. Oh, maybe not. Shit. How do I? Okay, I'll just copy this and open it here. So the only random encounter that I was really intrigued by is this guy. Can you see my screen?
Oh yeah, yeah, Mr. Blue Eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna share my screen with the viewers as well, because this guy, at some point during the missions, I mean, it's a secondary. I think it's not even related to the main story. You just help out a
Yep.
couple, and I think wife worries about his husband or vice versa, and you get to explore, you get
Yeah.
to investigate what's going on, and then at some point during the dialogue, you have this person somewhere far in the background on a balcony, but it's just barely noticeable. But if you're, have a good peripheral vision or keep at least minor amount of attention to what's going on, you will notice him. And I zoomed in and I see that he's wanted, but I couldn't get to him. I was really curious whether I missed some quest that will lead up to it, but it never gets resolved. It's just, well, he's there and then he disappears and that's it.
It doesn't get
So,
officially resolved, but spoiler, he is in one of the endings, and he gives you your final mission
oh,
to go
really?
into space. Yeah, to rob a
Oh, wait a
casino.
second, because I've played through Arasaka ending, and essentially, spoiler alert, I got digitized, I guess, I think,
Yeah.
and I
Oh,
went to the
okay. No,
moon probably, but I never met him, or did
he's
I?
not. No, he gives you the. It's I forget which ending it is, but basically, it's if you're going to be a street samurai for the rest of your life, and you're like super
Ah,
rich
okay.
now,
Yeah, no,
or something along those
I
lines.
just try to preserve myself because I want to live forever, and subconsciously, like, yeah, this is the way to go.
Yeah,
Fuck
yeah.
it, I'm gonna be enslaved,
But
but at least I will survive.
he's in one of the endings, and he also has a lot of backstory that you probably wouldn't know unless you were a Cyberpunk fan prior to the game.
Ah, you mean
And
the board game?
the tabletop RPG, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because
he
that, yeah.
he's an AI.
Because I thought that was just a reference to the elusive man from Mass Effect at first, at least, because the kind of resemblance of just like
Yeah,
blue-eyed
he
guy who
predates that.
smokes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
he
maybe they
predates that
inspired by
though.
that guy and just I just missed
Maybe
that
so, yeah.
initial reference
But
essentially.
he's the one who shuts you down when you come to talk to this guy, and you get warned not to tell him. Do
Yeah,
you
but
remember that where
okay,
your
no.
screen goes black? Yeah, yeah.
I played, I think, like a year ago. Well, initially it went out, and I played through, fortunately enough, without major bugs that totally were game breaking
Mm.
for me. I'm like for other players, it was totally different story. But I think I got to the point where the only missions on map that were available to me are something that was broken for some newspaper. That when I get into, the guy dies right away, and I can nothing I could do because of the bug. It's like I
Right.
get in the
Yeah,
building,
yeah.
he dies, and that's it. It's like, well, the mission is
Mm.
over. Well, okay. And the second one is the boxing championship
Ah, that one.
because I was playing as a hacker. I always play as a hacker because I don't want to get involved in this, because the stealth is so
Yeah.
rudimentary in this game, where the only means of actually role playing as a stealth operative is to put all your points in hack
Hack
and
from a
just hack
distance.
people from a
Yeah,
distance. Exactly. So when it comes to
totally.
the actually boxing championship, my character wasn't specifically designed for that sort of thing. So I got through all of them except the final one, who just one shots you unless you're super
Yep.
perfect. And I'm not a huge expert on Dark Souls, so I couldn't transfer my skills successfully enough to this particular encounter,
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately.
they cheat in that fight too, because he has like he'll throw a knee, and that knee connects with you no matter what you do. It took
Yeah,
me a
I
while to
think
figure it
I
out.
think I think it goes for all the boxing, even intermediate championships, because the mechanic of making a contact for the NPC, well, for your like enemy essentially, is such that when you do the kick or the punch, they can just dodge easily. But
Yeah.
if even if you slow mo dodge it, and they visually miss you, the damage still goes through from their point to you. So
For-
I thought it was a bad,
It
essentially.
yeah, in my playthrough, his knee would literally like whoop.
Maybe it's
So there was
some
no
sort of
avoiding it.
augmentation that we're not aware of. It's just
Maybe
like the
rocket knee.
yeah, exactly. So like the thermal navigation locks in, and this,
Yeah.
like, no matter where you go, it just hits you right in between the eyes.
Well, I
Yeah.
heard in the new patch that they actually have thermographic gear, so you can
Oh, really?
actually do stealth. Yeah, so I'm super
Yeah,
excited
but
about because I know exactly where it was that it was supposed to be.
mm,
It's in the Nomad camp.
yeah, I'm always comparing that, for obvious reason, with Deus Ex, because the Deus Ex series
Mm,
had those mechanics for me nailed down completely, because you could have
mm,
approached things from, I would say, maybe three main approaches. First of all, like, screw it, let's just kill
mm.
everybody. Second of all, try to be a diplomat to a point, and when that doesn't
Right.
work, you just go into a vent essentially.
And assassinate.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, or just do the hacking or unlocking stuff, especially in the very first game. You could just
Yeah.
screwdrive your way out of the most situations, and just get behind the stuff, and then just, I don't know, put a bomb in a case and just kill the NPC in question, and that's it, instead of like try and
Yep.
openly encounter them. So I expected that
Yeah.
sort of approach from Cyberpunk. I was a bit disappointed
Nope.
in that regard.
There's
So
like maybe 3 charisma things you can do, and I was so disappointed.
I think the biggest one, throw out all the mechanics, all the gameplay, all of the
Mm,
uh like glitches and stuff. The biggest
mm,
disappointment for me was the story is not branching as it was promised. The matter of
mm.
that you start as a corporate, the nomad or the street kid, essentially,
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
yeah, do fuck all. Sorry, for like it's really nice for the first 20 minutes, and then just whoop collide in the one single narrative story. So that was
Yeah, I'm hoping that they add more to that, and that's why I was gonna play 1 year later, but now I've decided to play 2 years
2 years
later,
later.
and I'm hoping that there'll be a bunch of DLC or something to sort of expand what those things are. It was very much like Dragon Age Origins though, where like once you get to the main plot line, every all the character specific stuff is mostly irrelevant, but at least in DAO, they still referenced it and actually had decision trees stuff that mattered for it. Whereas with Cyberpunk 2077, like there's a few things that it seems to matter, but it absolutely does not.
I think they rushed it. So I guess it would work if they
100% they
just
rushed it.
moved
Yes.
this point of colliding all the paths, let's just say, to one a bit further. Even though like pass, if they designed the first mission with the how's the golden arm guy, I forgot his name. But if that mission was approached from different perspective, I think that would be enough, at least for me. So I started as a corporate.
Mm.
I hear for some deal, happening on the street regarding that chip that involves something. And from point of view of the company that I supposed to, which interest I supposed to protect, I go into that mission trying to like uncover what's what, and maybe then in the middle of that mission I got betrayed or whatnot. And after that I'm against everybody now. That would make perfect sense for me to like, okay, I'm stop being a corporate because they betrayed me. Not in like while I'm just sitting at a bar having no idea what's about to happen for no reason. I didn't done anything
Right.
yet. I just arrived
Yeah.
prescripted to this event.
Yeah. Well,
Essentially.
Nomad's similar in that you've already left your Nomad tribe and there's no real, it doesn't matter. But I think Nomad Start and Nomad End are the most compelling story.
Oh,
And
really?
at least it's the happiest. Yeah, for sure. But I think what they should have done is had um, for each life path actually have significant stuff that matters for it, and they needed to do a faction system. So one of the big fuck ups I think of the game is that they imply factions, but there isn't any faction system at all. So you're doing all this stuff and earning
Yeah.
street cred, but
There
you're
are
like
just
helping
areas.
cops. You're helping cops and getting street cred with like fucking mercenary groups and thieves, and it's like it doesn't make any sense. They just needed to break out those factions, and then if you started corpo you'd have more connections in the corpo sphere that you could use, and so you'd have more faction with like Arasaka or something, and so on with the different life
Yeah, I
paths.
think I would have
That would have made the
expected
game way more
something along
compelling.
the lines of original Fallout games when
Mm.
you decide to join a certain faction, you do some quests with them, you get bored of them, you betray them, you switch to another one, and off you go. Well, it's essentially you can
Yeah.
do the same in Skyrim, but you not necessarily can betray it anyway because you cannot kill them because they're immortal NPCs at some point.
Right.
The key ones at least. But I think in Fallout you could have just screwed it, kill everybody, and well, you could be hard locked from progressing further, but you technically could have killed some of the NPCs that could potentially help you out further along way.
Oh, for sure. And they sort of have a microcosm of what the good Cyberpunk 2077 would have been, which is the quest. It's a mainline quest where you have to get the drone, the stealth drone. That quest right there has all of the implications of like, do I side with the corpos? Do I side with Militech? Do I betray them for the gang? Do I tell the gang about this? Like it had just enough twists and turns there that you felt like you were making your own story and you had total agency, even though the outcomes were very limited in terms of these two guys are fighting or this group is fighting or you get away scot free. Like it was all there, but they just didn't do it for everything. And that's my biggest
Yeah,
letdown with the
so
game is the
I think
promise
we're
was
like
there, but
made a circle to actual question what I was when this whole thing of discussion started is what
right.
you have done different in terms of narrative design for Cyberpunk, apart from the things that we discussed, like particular approaches that you think would work better. Maybe they will listen
Yeah,
and they'll implement actually.
I did a whole video on it. I don't think
Yeah.
maybe
I
they
heard some of
actually
them.
fixed the majority of the things that I talk about. So I'm wondering if they did watch my video, but
Hmm.
maybe that's just ego.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, I mean it's all there, and it's gotten quite a few views.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you did the whole analysis of the game because I think people would be interested in
Yeah.
doing that sort of things more for other games as well, not necessarily the big ones that screwed up because
I
they
will.
rushed things.
Right, no. But the reason I did it for Cyberpunk is that I grew up like I was 12 years old playing Cyberpunk, and so it had a lot of meaning for me, and I was still kind of a little bit bitter that they didn't hire me to do the writing for the game because I think I could
Yeah.
have saved them from a lot of these problems if I had been on board there. But between their crunch policy and stuff, I don't think I would have been happy there. I probably would have left anyways.
Well, we see the trends of uh, like veteran developers leave their major mother companies, let's just say, where they're being for decades essentially, and just starting their own companies. We
Yeah.
saw that with Dreamhaven, Frost Giants, and now the ex game director from Witcher 3, I think. They made their own
Mm.
studio and doing some sort of how you say, folklore based dark RPG kind of thing. I
Cool.
unfortunately I forgot the name, but that's the case. What do you think that will result in something actually good, or it will just like they will try and they'll probably it will boil down to the same thing eventually?
I have no idea. It really depends on the individuals involved. That's the problem. So, whether these guys were actually sort of the impetus for good stuff and they just didn't get enough of their way, or whether it was the company that sort of upheld these guys and fixed what they couldn't get right, I don't know. It's going to depend on each one. I will say this: Dreamhaven is a really great idea in terms of it's just an umbrella corp
Yeah.
to do all the biz dev stuff for the companies under them, and I think that's perfect because I don't want to run a studio. I don't want to make my own studio because then I'm
Yeah, I
doing
just
biz
want to
dev
make
stuff. I'm not
games, and
creating anything.
that's
Yeah, I want to create cool shit. I don't want to sit there and talk to HR about some guys crawling under desks, and I think maybe that's why my moron got in trouble. Sorry,
yeah.
that was bad speculation. I shouldn't have said
Ah, no worries. I'm just I'm trying to do a follow
that.
up for this, and I'm lost for words. Uh, but as an
Good.
example, if you mention Dreamhaven and Umbrella and the guys that doing, was it Frost Giants that do new RTS? I'm just curious what you
Yep.
thought on like modern RTS nowadays. How it would even look like. What people want from it, in your opinion?
I think what they want is they want what Warcraft 3 promised and delivered, which is like a full cool campaign, uh, you know, asymmetric races, either whatever the setting may be. In this case, it'll be fantasy, I assume. And then a campaign editor that where they can make their own stuff. So full on multiplayer, full on single player, full on editor where people can do their own cool stuff. I think if you can deliver on those three things, you've got a winner. Um,
Do you think
and
they go
I
more with the focus on characters as well they did on Warcraft 3, or maybe even further, or less than that?
I don't know what their plans are.
No, I mean,
So,
I'm just we're just speculating and thinking of hypotheticals at
oh,
this point.
well, I can only speak from like the way that I would approach it is,
Yeah,
yeah, I would go more into
definitely.
the characters. So it would definitely be heavier RPG driven stuff with more leveling up and broader leveling up between the campaign missions so that it actually feels more like an RPG. So it's sort of like a D&D character with all their minions. And I think that could be a lot
Yeah,
of fun in
I
terms
just
of
recalled the one that you mentioned, the AI driven, well, how you say
oh
that,
the
the neural network driven D&D text
AI
type of a
dungeon.
game, and whether you can just
Yeah.
implement it in a real game scenario. Because I never heard of that sort of thing before. When I saw
Hmm.
what it was capable of, like, curious that will generate nice content. Have you tried like going the full session with just like
I've done a few sessions, yeah.
oh, really? Because I thought like you go
Yeah.
from a chat. Okay, chat suggests like the name of the character, the setting, and you just randomly pick this stuff up and throw it at the algorithm and say, well, off you go. Let me see a
It
story.
the deeper you go with it, the worse it gets, unfortunately. So it's
So it's
not
not there yet.
um no, I saw that they have a second version, but I haven't played it yet, so I don't know if it's how much better it would be. But either way, I think that it's never going to quite match what a human storyteller can do, unfortunately, or at least not, I think, in my lifetime. But
Would
maybe we'll see in
you
10 or 20
would you
years.
think that at some point will as a game narrative uh
Hmm.
expert, so you put it all in. Like, okay, I have this character, this setting, this plot point, this thing. Just put it in the furnace, let it cook, see what it comes up with, and then maybe just edit some sort of, like use it as a base and see like if it any good that they come up
No,
with, or just do it yourself from scratch and
I
not
I
delegating
think
anything.
No, no, no. I think the problem is that people think of it sort of like, oh, it's a tool, so it can just, write stuff. It can't. It'll write stuff and it'll kind of vaguely sound humanish, but it's never going to be like a crafted story. I think that the way to use these things is that you feed it the data and then you start writing, and then like, let's say you're writing about this particular area, and then it reminds you of all the historical references that you've already got in the lore, and it's like, and don't forget that
Ah,
this is connected to
I
here and
thought
this is
I thought
connected to
you would
there.
go. You feed it the data, you let it cook, you write it yourself, then you compare, and if it's better, then you just quit your job after that.
I mean, I would if that ever did happen, but
Oh my.
if
Yeah,
the machine's writing better than I am, what am I doing? I should go do
yeah.
something else, right?
Can a machine write a symphony? Can you? Well, yeah, that sort of thing.
They actually can do music, and it's actually
Yeah, I
pretty
heard
good
that one.
music too.
That I was just trying to
Yeah,
do the reference to iRobot movie and see if it sticks to this particular scenario. Oh well, yeah.
yeah. But writing, I'm not worried about writing. At least not for another 10 years.
Oh, I wish I could write. I mean, I try to do my own stuff, but I never get enough time
Mhm.
to properly finish. I mean, I've written 2 chapters and that's just put on a hold and that's it and just sits there. Oh well.
I do a lot of that within the novels. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, surprisingly, how Stephen King does what he does, I have no idea. But that's Stephen King.
Yeah, he is a
He's
machine.
yeah, exactly. All
He
right.
described it as he has to get out the idea or it'll kill him.
Shit, that's a very Stephen Kingish thing to say.
It's a horror movie in
He's probably
itself.
have a book with exactly same plot already somewhere
I Yeah, maybe.
because it
He should write
sounds
that
just
if he hasn't.
like a screenplay waiting to happen.
Or
I
maybe I'll
think
write it. Who
yeah,
knows?
I think we've talked. Oh, holy shit! It's really nice. We spent like almost 2.5 hours because I really enjoy when the conversation just flows naturally and you don't have to like come up with stuff to ask about. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah, me
that
too.
you've supported this flow for as long as you did, and
And I could go on
hopefully.
another hour if you want. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but I find that like 2 hours is a really nice like Goldilocks zone when you're not that tired, but you kind of covered lots of points already.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean, we can do the next episode as well if you somewhere in the future if you will be up for it. So let's just
yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
hit you on that and we'll see. So
We can
thank you
talk
guys
again
for
for
those of
sure.
you who are watching live, and if you're watching in recording, make sure you visit David's channel in the description and join his Discord community, and maybe you'll find something. Well, you probably find something of interest in there for sure. And I think you do the videos quite regularly now on YouTube, so it will be
I'm trying to do at least one a month. So that's sort of my goal.
good enough.
We'll
I
see.
think it's good enough. Yeah. So, guys, for those of you who watch in Russian, the auto subtitles hopefully will work out and wouldn't have
Mm.
any bizarre shit going on, but you never know. It's always funny to read those after the Google finishes with them.
Oh
So
boy.
thanks again, guys, and we'll see you another time. That was it for now, and cheers. Bye bye.